The year 2473, humanity's reach had extended like fragile tendrils into the black, colonizing worlds that orbited stars too dim to warm their own rocks. Alera, 9 was one such speck, a frozen moonlet in the shadow of a gas giant, where the only light came from fusion lamps and the perpetual aurora of particle storms. Dr. Alera Voss, chief xenobiologist for the Orion Collective, had come here, chasing whispers, faint signals buried in the ice, patterns that didn't match any known language or code. Her team called them the Echoes. She called them destiny. Alera Voss was not built for destiny. At 42, she was a wiry woman with augmented eyes that glowed faintly blue in the dark, scars from childhood on a dying Earth etched into her skin like circuit boards. She'd clawed her way through the collective's ranks by being the best at seeing what others missed. The subtle fractal in a virus's protein coat, the hidden rhythm in a nebulous glow. But Alera, 9, was different. The Echoes weren't data. They were hungry. They pulled at her dreams, whispering in voices that tasted like ozone and regret. The dig site was a cavern bored into the moon's crust, 200 meters below the surface. Holographic projectors cast sterile white light over the chamber, where the team's 6 souls in total huddled around a central pit. The ice walls hummed with the low thrum of the excavator drones, their blades carving out layers of millennia-old frost. At the pit's bottom lay the anomaly, a seamless obsidian slab, 3 meters square, etched with glyphs that shifted when you weren't looking directly at them. "Run the scan again," Kai Alera said, her voice steady despite the knot in her gut. Kai, the engineer, a stocky man with a beard like frozen steel wool, nodded, his fingers dancing over console. The scanner's beam lanced down, a pillar of coherent light that made the glyphs flare like veins of lightning. Same as before document. No thermal signature, no radiation spikes, but the harmonics, they're syncing with the particle storm outside. Like it's listening. Alera leaned over the edge, her breath fogging the air. The Echoes had started weeks ago, faint radio bursts that synced with her team's comms chatter. At first, they dismissed them as interference from the gas giant's magnetosphere. Then Mira, the linguist, had decoded the first phrase: "We wait for the singers." Singers. Alera's team had laughed it off. Myra's pattern-matching algorithms were notoriously overzealous. But the whispers grew louder, threading into their sleep cycles. Last night, Alera had dreamed of a vast chorus, voices weaving through the void, calling her name. She'd woken with frost on her lips, tasting salt. "Prep the interface probe," she ordered. "We're going in." The probe was a slender thing, a nanotube filament tipped with a neural lace, designed to interface with organic tech. If the slab was alien machinery, this would wake it gently. If it was a weapon, well, the collective's protocols were clear: isolate and incinerate. But Alera had buried those protocols under layers of curiosity. Humanity hadn't clawed its way to the stars by playing safe. As the probe descended, the chamber's lights flickered. A low moan echoed from the walls, not mechanical, but vocal like wind through a canyon of bones. Mira gasped, clutching her tablet. The glyphs, they're rewriting themselves. "Look!" Alera peered down. The obsidian surface rippled, symbols blooming like ink in water. Spirals, thorns, eyes that blinked. The probe touched home with a soft click, and the world inverted. She was falling, not through ice or stone, but through nothingness, a tapestry of stars unraveling thread by thread. The Echoes weren't signals. They were memories, vast and ancient, belonging to a species that had sung the universe into shape. The Ethery, they called themselves in the flood of images, beings of pure waveform, who danced on the event horizons of black holes, composing symphonies that bent gravity. Their song had built worlds, tamed stars, woven the fabric of reality like a loom. But the silence came. A predator from beyond the observable edge, a devourer of light, a cancer of entropy. It didn't hunger for matter, it craved pattern. The Ethery songs were the most intricate patterns, so it unraveled them one note at a time. They fled, scattering their essence into seeds, crystalline archives buried in the bones of dead moons, waiting for new singers to carry the melody forward. Alara tumbled through the archive's core, her mind a fragile boat on an ocean of grief. She saw their fall choruses silenced mid-phrase, harmonies fracturing into static. The last Ethery, a solitary voice named Lyrith, had encoded the final verse into the void, a plea and a weapon. Sing with us, or the silence claims all. The devourer wasn't mindless. It was patient as shadow that learned from its prey. It mimicked the Ethery's forms, whispered in their tongues, luring the survivors into traps. Alara glimpsed its true shape in the archive's depths. Not a monster of teeth and claws, but a fractal void, endlessly recursive, erasing complexity with a sigh. It had followed the seeds across the galaxy, sleeping in the dark until disturbed. And now it stirred. The probe's touch was a spark, the archive's awakening, a beacon. Alara snapped back to the chamber with a scream that shattered the silence. The slab was glowing, a pulsating heart of indigo light, and the air thrummed with the echoes made flesh voices overlapping in a cacophony of alien sorrow. "Dock the storm, it's inside," Kai yelled, pointing to the readouts. The particle aurora had breached the crust, tendrils of plasma snaking through the ice like seeking fingers. But worse, shadows moved in the corners of her vision, distortions that bent light wrong. Mira was on her knees, tears freezing our cheeks. "They're singing Alara. The Ethery, they're here." The team fractured. Jax, the geologist, bolted for the lift, babbling about hull breaches. Lena, the medic, fired her sidearm at a shadow that wasn't there, the recoil cracking her wrist. Kai stayed, hands frozen on the console, his eyes distant as if listening to a private concert. Alara grabbed Myra's arm. "We have to shut it down. The probe pull it." But Mira shook her head, eyes wide with awe. "No, listen. It's beautiful. We are the singers." The glyphs surged, projecting holograms into the air's spectral ethery, translucent waves of color and sound, their forms coiling like smoke. One approached Alara, its voice a vibration in her bones, sister of flesh. The melody falters. "Join us. We the counterpoint." Alara's augmented eyes burned, downloading the song unbidden, a symphony of quantum harmonies, equations that danced on the edge of impossibility. It promised power, to fold space, to heal the scars of dead worlds, to defy entropy itself. All she had to do was sing. The shadow thing lashed out first. It erupted from the slab's edges, a ripple of nothingness that swallowed Jax mid-stride. His scream cut off like a severed wire, leaving only a boot tumbling in the low gravity. The Devourer's mimicry was perfect. It wore Jax's face for a heartbeat, mouthing silent pleas before dissolving into fractal hunger. Runalara roared, shoving Mira toward the lift. Kai fired up the emergency lockdown, bulkheads slamming down with hydraulic groans. But the shadows seeped through, voids pooling on the floor like oil, climbing the walls. Lena fell next, dragged into a patch of darkness that yawned like a mouth. Her tranq darts passed harmlessly through, vanishing into the maw. "Alara, make it stop." The Ethery's chorus swelled, a desperate counterpoint sing. The pattern holds only in unity. Alara's mind reeled. The archive wasn't just a library. It was a trap, bait for the Devourer. The Ethri had known their end was near, so they'd woven a lure. Any new singers would awaken the seed, drawing the predator like moths to flame. But the true song, was the weapon. A resonance frequency tuned to the devourer's core, a harmonic knife to sever its endless recursion. She dropped to her knees beside the slab, the probe's filament still humming in her palm. The shadows closed in, tendrils brushing her skin like icy fingers tasting her thoughts. You are pattern. Delicious. Mira hesitated at the lift doors, then turned back. Doc, I hear it too. The end of the verse. Don't, Alara whispered, but Mira was already kneeling, her voice joining the chorus, a fragile human thread weaving into the alien tapestry. The air shivered, the shadows recoiling as the melody built. Kai's hands blurred over the console, overriding safeties. I'm amplifying it through the storm relays. If we broadcast, the devourer struck. A pseudopod of void whipped out, engulfing Kai's legs. He howled, thrashing, but kept typing, blood freezing in zero-G droplets. Finish it, Doc. Sing the goddamn song. Alara's throat burned as she let the archive flutter. The notes weren't words. They were mathematics made music, frequencies that resonated with the subatomic weave of reality. She opened her mouth, and the sound poured out not her voice, but something vast, a chorus of 1,000,000,000,000 silent souls. The chamber trembled. The slab cracked, indigo light erupting like a supernova. The shadows writhed, their fractal edges fraying, unraveling into harmless static. The devourer screamed a sound like universes tearing and imploded, collapsing into a pinpoint of nullity that winked out with a final, petulant pop. Silence fell, heavy as grave dust. Mira slumped, her eyes glassy, a faint smile on her lips. Kai lay still, his body half dissolved, console sparking. Only Alara remained, the song echoing in her skull like tinnitus from the gods. She emerged from the moonlit 3 days later, the lift grinding against warped tracks. The storm had passed, leaving Alara 9 scarred but intact. The collective's rescue drone found her curled in the control pod, humming an alien lullaby. They debriefed her in a sterile hab module orbiting the gas giant, neural probes mapping the archive's remnants in her mind. It's gone, the lead inquisitor said, a gray-suited man with eyes like data chips. The entity, the slab, all vaporized, but the transmission you broadcasted across the system. Alara nodded, staring at the holoscreen where star charts bloomed with new signals. The song had rippled outward, a wave of resonance that shattered hidden seeds across a dozen worlds. Echoes answered from the void, faint at first, then swelling. Other archives awakening, other choruses stirring. You're a hero, Dr. Voss, the Inquisitor continued. Humanity's first contact. The Ethri legacy is ours now. But Alara heard the lie in his tone, the greed beneath the awe. The collective would weaponize the song, twist it into drives and bombs, claim the stars in humanity's name. And the devourer? It was patient. One death wouldn't end it. The galaxy was vast, and shadows lingered in every crack. As the shuttle ferried her back to the core worlds, Alara gazed into the black, the melody thrumming in her veins. She wasn't a singer by choice, but the archive had chosen her. And in the quiet hours, when the stars whispered back, she wondered, was salvation just another pattern, waiting to be unraveled? The echoes never truly faded. They waited, as always, for the next verse.
If you like the story, please subscribe our channel. Thank you for watching.